Você sabia que Taylor Hagler é a primeira mulher a ter se tornado campeã da Michelin Pilot Challenge? Vem que o Elas na Pista bateu um papo com exclusividade com a pilota. Pra quem não me conhece, eu sou a Natália De Vivo e esse é o Elas na Pista. E aí, pessoal, tudo bom com vocês? Sim, Taylor Hagler fez história na Michelin Pilot Challenge, que é uma das categorias do braço da IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car, principal categoria de corridas de endurance, corridas de longa duração lá dos Estados Unidos. A pilota, ao lado do seu companheiro Michael, conseguiu o título em 2021 e já começou 2022 subindo ao pódio em Daytona, numa corrida que rolou lá junto com as 24 horas de Daytona da IMSA. Bom, então Elas na Pista, para conhecer um pouquinho mais da história da estadunidense, bateu um papo com exclusividade com ela e nessa primeira parte ela fala um pouquinho sobre como começou a correr, é uma história inclusive bastante curiosa. Quais que foram os altos e baixos de sua carreira, o principal sonho, como que ela vê o cenário das mulheres no esporte a motor atualmente e muito outras curiosidades. Então se liga aí para conferir a primeira parte do nosso bate-papo e depois, é claro, não esquece, deixa o seu joinha, ativa o sininho, comenta, compartilha, se inscreve no canal que ajuda muito aqui o Elas na Pista. Também deixa sua opinião sobre o que você achou da entrevista, compartilha com seus amigos e se você quiser conteúdo exclusivo, inclusive da Taylor Hagler, já sabe, né? Só entrar no meu perfil, clicar no botão de Seja Membro e escolher uma das 3 mensalidades que melhor se encaixam para você. Confere aí a primeira parte da entrevista. Okay, the first question must be the most asked. So, how your interest in motorsport began?
So my dad was always interested in motorsports since like he was younger and like growing up in Alabama, he would just like drive over to Road Atlanta and go watch like the SCCA championships over there back in like probably like the 70s, 80s. And then like when I was younger, he kind of got me into racing, starting with like watching NASCAR and then kind of involved into Indy and Formula One. And at the time it was ALMS, which is now IMSA. So I really enjoyed like watching it on TV, and then we would go to Road Atlanta for Petit Le Mans weekend, and I loved the atmosphere there, and that was like kind of what I looked forward to every year, and it was usually always around my birthday, so we always went for my birthday, and I really enjoyed being in the environment, and that's kind of how I got into it with my dad. So that's what piqued my interest.
And you start racing because of a voucher your sister received, right? How was that?
Yeah, so I have an older sister. She's about 3 years older than me. So when she turned 16, like most 16-year-olds when they first drive, they're kind of like crazy and drive fast and think they're invincible. So my dad thought she would be a good race car driver. And so he bought her a Skip Barber racing certificate, which like she really had no interest in racing, so she never used. So when I was about 21 almost, I was almost out of college. And at the time I had already stopped riding horses. That was kind of just done. So I was like, oh, well, like the voucher's still good. I might as well use it. It's just sitting there, free money at that point. So I did a 3-day racing school and really, really enjoyed it. So we went ahead and bought a 2-day racing school, and I still really enjoyed it. And some of the instructors there like thought that it was an avenue that I could go down like with a little bit more teaching and experience. So then we went into club racing, and I kind of just followed the opportunities as they came.
And do you remember your first memory in motorsport, karting, or racing?
So I didn't do any karting, and the very first like race I ever did was in New Orleans in a Spec Miata, and the main reason that I remember that race was because if I remember correctly, I was doing pretty well, and then I got taken out by a BMW and didn't get to finish the race. So that was kind of how my first race went.
And you said you equitation.
Yeah.
You did, and how was to change for horse to horsepowers?
It was actually pretty easy. I feel like there's a lot of similarities in the way that you prepare for a race in the same way that you'd prepare for a horse show. And I mean, obviously, one is actually physically riding a horse, and the other one is driving a car. But it kind of uses the same muscles. You use your arms a lot, you use your core a lot, and obviously you use your legs. So I didn't have to like learn to use any different muscles or use them differently or more. So like the muscle that I needed for cars was already there from horses, and then it's just kind of the same concept of like you need to like look where you want to go, because like if you're going to look at a wall either on a horse or in a car, like you're going to go into that wall, you have to look at where you want to go. So that was pretty easy to like transfer over to the main thing that like I really struggled with was like the learning to be a little bit more aggressive in cars, because obviously with show jumping, I'm not in the arena with another horse. I don't have to like be side by side with another horse. It's just me and one horse. So being on the track around all these different cars, like that kind of took a little while. When I first started, every start of every race, I would always just kind of like bail out and be like, okay, I'm going to the back, everyone else, you have fun, and then kind of work my way back up. So it's taken a little while to like get used to being so close with other cars and being able to race side by side and not get scared.
And you showed that you learned fast because you started racing 4 years ago and already achieved so much. Did you expect that?
I really didn't. I didn't even expect to be where I am now, to be completely honest. I did the year of club racing, and it was kind of just like, I really enjoyed it, but it was kind of just a hobby at that point. Like I still finished my degree. I was still working at the same time. I was like, oh, it's kind of just a hobby. We're really just like throwing away money at this point. So I still like worked, and I still do work at the current moment. But I didn't really expect to have it as like a profession as I do now. So I definitely didn't expect to be a female champion or a champion at all. I didn't expect to have any race wins or really even be driving as a factory driver for Hyundai or with Brian Herta. That just kind of wasn't part of the actual goal or plan until it kind of happened.
And when you started racing, you already wanted to do tourism cars?
I kind of just was willing to like drive whatever. Like, I started basically in Spec Miata, which was kind of just club racing. But my first year as like a pro driver was in a touring car, and I've kind of just moved up to the ranks in touring cars, and they're a lot of fun. To be completely honest, it wasn't something I ever expected. I mean, I kind of grew up watching all the high horsepower cars like the Porsches and Lamborghinis and stuff like that. And obviously, as a kid, you're like, oh, I want to drive the fast cars. But getting in a touring car, I feel like it's a lot more rewarding, honestly, because I've obviously driven a GT3 and a touring car, and I feel like the GT3, yes, has more horsepower, but it also has like the traction control and all of that. So I think it's a bit easier to drive. So I think touring cars are a bit more rewarding because you have to work a lot harder. The car is literally never the same from one lap to the other and one track to another track. Sometimes it needs to be a little bit more stable. Sometimes it needs to be a little looser. So like, it's like every race weekend you're driving a different car. So I really enjoyed it. Something different every weekend.
And for now, what's the highest and lowest points of your career?
I mean, obviously, I think the highest would have to be winning the championship last year. And just within that year, we had a lot of highs and a lot of lows. I think the lowest right now, I think from last year, we had a pretty rough race at Road America last year with just making collectively as a team bad tire choices, which cost us quite a bit. I think that's pretty much like my lowest right now. And obviously, yeah, the highest would be winning the championship.
And how do you see the motorsport scenario for women nowadays?
I definitely think women in motorsports is getting a lot better. We've definitely made a lot of progress. I think there's still some progress that needs to be made. It's going to be ever growing, but I think we're getting a lot more women interested. I know we're over in Europe, it's a bit bigger and there's a lot more women over there. So hopefully we start getting a bit more here in the States. That would be really nice. But I think like the W Series has done some pretty decent things for women in motorsports, and now they're getting Indy rides and F1 test driver rides. So I think it's getting a little bit better. It's starting to get a bit more like inclusive in this day and age.
And what's your goals for the future?
I think my goals are ever changing. One goal that I've always had since I was younger is I wanted to be a factory driver and I want to do the 24-hour Le Mans. So I've already hit one of those. I am a factory driver for Hyundai. Maybe one day I'll get to Le Mans, who knows? But right now I'm pretty happy with Hyundai and Brian Herta, so not looking to move anywhere else just yet.
And the last question, how the people can support you?
Everyone can really just support me by watching, following on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We've just expanded into TikTok, so that one's going to be pretty new for me. It's all Taylor Hagler or Taylor Hagler Motorsports. That's really just like the biggest way everyone can support me. Watch the races, follow on social media.